Whispers of the Night, an epic tale of love and mystery. Hey there, gather round, my friends. I've got a story that'll make your heart race and your imagination soar. It's a tale of love, danger, and secrets so deep they could swallow the world whole. You think you know adventure? You ain't seen nothing yet. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and let me take you on a journey you'll never forget. The Whisper in the Wind. Picture this, a world on the brink of change, where the veil between reality and myth is as thin as a whisper. That's where our story begins, in a place where ancient powers still linger in the shadows, waiting to be awakened. Our tale starts with a sound a whisper carried on the wind, echoing through time. It speaks of a love so powerful it could reshape destiny, and a secret so dangerous it could unravel the fabric of reality itself. This whisper has been traveling for centuries, searching for the right ears to hear it, the right hearts to understand it. And finally, on a crisp autumn night, in a quaint little town that time seemed to have forgotten, that whisper found its mark. It found Amelia, the archivist, and the letter. Now, let me tell you about Amelia Blackwood. Picture a woman in her late 20s with wild auburn hair that refuses to be tamed and eyes the color of storm clouds. Amelia isn't your average small-town girl, oh no. She's a historian, the kind that could look at a dusty old book and see entire worlds hidden in its pages. Amelia's got this way about her, you know? When she walks into a room, it's like the air itself stands at attention. She's brilliant, no doubt about that, but it's more than that. There's a fire in her, a hunger for knowledge that burns so bright it's almost tangible. Our girl Amelia works at the Ravenswood Historical Society, a place that's as much a character in this story as any person. Picture an old Victorian mansion, all dark wood and stained glass, filled to the brim with artifacts and books so old they might crumble if you look at them wrong. This place, it's Amelia's sanctuary, her home away from home. One night, Amelia's working late in the archives. The kind of late where the moon's high in the sky and the only sound is the scratching of her pen and the occasional creak of the old building settling. She's surrounded by all these ancient tomes, the smell of old paper and leather thick in the air. That's when it happened. A letter appears on her desk as if by magic. Now, I know what you're thinking. Don't open it, Amelia. But come on, would you be able to resist? This letter, it's like nothing she's ever seen before. The paper's old, really old, and it's sealed with this weird symbol that seems to shimmer in the lamplight. Amelia breaks that seal, and bam! Her whole world turns upside down. The letter's talking about this guy named Elias Blackthorne. Mysterious, dangerous Elias, who's hunting for a secret that's been buried for centuries. And Amelia? She's hooked. Hook, line, and sinker. But here's the kicker, folks. The letter? It's addressed to her. Not just to anyone named Amelia, but to her specifically. Amelia Catherine Blackwood, born on the winter solstice, with a crescent-shaped birthmark on her left wrist. As Amelia reads the letter, the words seem to come alive on the page. She can almost hear a voice whispering in her ear, telling her about an artifact of unimaginable power. An artifact that, in the wrong hands, could bring about the end of everything. And why is this letter coming to her? Because, it says, she's the key. She's the one who can either save the world or doom it. Talk about pressure, right? Amelia's hands are shaking by the time she finishes reading. She looks up, and for a moment, just a moment, she swears she sees a figure standing in the shadows of the archive. A tall, dark figure with eyes that seem to glow in the darkness. But when she blinks, it's gone. Was it ever really there? Or was it just her imagination, fired up by the contents of the letter? One thing's for sure, though. Amelia's life is never going to be the same again. She's just taken her first step on a journey that's going to test her in ways she never imagined. A journey of danger, of mystery, and just maybe of a love so powerful it could change the world. But that, my friends, is just the beginning. Oh, you better believe there's more to come. So, are you ready to dive deeper into this tale? Are you ready to uncover the secrets that have been waiting centuries to be revealed? Hold on to your seats, folks. This is going to be one wild ride. Shadows and whispers. Now, let me paint you a picture of what happens next. Amelia, she's not the type to just sit around and wait for adventure to come knocking. No, sir, our girl's a go-getter. The moment she finishes that letter, she's on her feet, mind racing a mile a minute. She starts digging through the archives like a woman possessed. Old newspapers, ancient maps, dusty journals, anything that might give her a clue about this Elias character or the artifact mentioned in the letter. It's like trying to put together a 1,000-piece puzzle in the dark with half the pieces missing. Days turn into weeks, and Amelia's obsession grows. Her colleagues at the Historical Society start to worry. They see the dark circles under her eyes, the way she jumps at shadows. But Amelia can't stop. She's caught in the pull of something bigger than herself, like a leaf caught in a whirlpool. And then, one rainy night, because of course it was raining, that's how these things go, everything changes. Amelia's walking home from the archives, her mind still buzzing with theories and questions. The streets are empty, the cobblestones slick with rain, and the street lamps cast eerie shadows that seem to dance and whisper. That's when she sees him. Elias is standing under a street lamp, looking like he stepped right out of some dark fantasy. He's tall, with broad shoulders and a face that could have been carved from marble. His hair is as black as a raven's wing, and his eyes, oh, his eyes are something else. They're the color of storm clouds, with flecks of gold that seem to glow in the lamplight. When he speaks, it's like thunder rolling in the distance. "You shouldn't have come looking for me," he says, his voice a low rumble that Amelia feels in her bones. But Amelia? She's not backing down. She's come too far, learned too much. Too late, she tells him, her voice steadier than she feels. "I'm already involved." And just like that, boom, the spark ignites. The air between them is crackling with tension, with an energy that's part danger, part something else entirely. It's intoxicating, and they both know there's no going back. Elias steps closer, and Amelia can see the conflict in his eyes. He's fighting against something, she realizes. Fighting against the pull between them, fighting against the fate that's brought them together. "You don't know what you're getting into," he warns her, his voice low and urgent. "This isn't a game, Amelia. People have died for this secret. Entire civilizations have fallen." But Amelia stands her ground. She looks up at him, rain plastering her hair to her face, and says, "Then help me understand. You can't expect me to walk away now." For a long moment, they just stare at each other, the rain falling around them, the world fading away until it's just the two of them, caught in this moment that feels like it could stretch into eternity. Finally, Elias nods, a quick, sharp movement. "Not here," he says. "It's not safe. Meet me tomorrow night at the old lighthouse on the cliffs." "And Amelia?" His eyes bore into hers. "Trust no one." And then he's gone, melting into the shadows like he was never there at all. Amelia's left standing in the rain, her heart pounding, her mind reeling. She knows she's just stepped off the edge of the world she knew, into something dark and dangerous and thrilling. As she walks home, she can't shake the feeling that she's being watched. Shadows seem to move at the corner of her vision, and more than once she swears she hears footsteps behind her. But every time she turns, there's nothing there. What has she gotten herself into? Who is Elias, really? And what's this secret that's worth killing for? Amelia doesn't have the answers yet, but she knows one thing for sure. Her life is never going to be the same again. And despite the danger, despite the fear curling in her gut, there's a part of her that's exhilarated. Finally, she's about to uncover the kind of mystery she's always dreamed of. Little does she know, the mystery is about to uncover some things about her, too. Things that have been hidden for a very, very long time. But that, my friends, is a story for our next chapter. Are you ready to dive deeper into the shadows? To uncover secrets that have been buried for centuries? Because let me tell you, this is where things really start to get interesting. The Lighthouse Revelation. All right, buckle up, folks. This is where our tale really starts to get wild. The next day crawls by for Amelia. She's at work, but her mind is a million miles away. Every creak of the old building makes her jump, every shadow seems to hide a secret. By the time night falls, she's a bundle of nerves and excitement. The old lighthouse stands on a cliff overlooking the sea, a lonely sentinel against the darkness. As Amelia approaches, the wind whips around her, carrying the taste of salt and secrets. The lighthouse hasn't been used in years, its light long since gone dark. But tonight, a faint glow flickers from the top room. Amelia climbs the winding stairs, her heart pounding in time with her footsteps. She pushes open the door at the top, and there he is. Elias, silhouetted against the window, looking out at the churning sea. "You came," he says, without turning around. "Part of me hoped you wouldn't." "You know I had to," Amelia replies, stepping into the room. "Now, are you going to tell me what's going on?" Elias turns to face her, and in the flickering candlelight, he looks like something out of a dream. Or maybe a nightmare. "What do you know about the ethereal codex?" he asks. Amelia frowns. "The what?" "The ethereal codex," Elias repeats. "An artifact of immense power. It's said to contain the secrets of reality itself. With it, one could rewrite the laws of nature, bend time and space to their will." He pauses, his eyes boring into Amelia's. "And you, Amelia Blackwood, are the key to finding it." Amelia's mind reels. "Me? But how? Why?" Elias steps closer, and suddenly he's holding something. A pendant hanging from a delicate silver chain. The pendant itself is a small, intricately carved piece of what looks like opal, shimmering with colors that seem to shift and change as Amelia watches. This has been passed down through my family for generations, Elias says. It's a key of sorts, a guide to finding the codex. But it's never worked. Until now. He holds the pendant up, and Amelia gasps. The opal is glowing, pulsing with a light that seems to reach out towards her. It's reacting to you, Elias says, his voice filled with wonder and a hint of fear. Which means the legends are true. You're a descendant. A descendant of what? Amelia asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Of the original creators of the Codex, Elias replies. Beings of immense power who walked the earth millennia ago. Their blood runs in your veins, Amelia. That's why you've always felt different, always felt like you were meant for something more. Amelia's head is spinning. It's too much, too fast. But at the same time, deep in her heart, something resonates with Elias's words. Like a truth she's always known, but never acknowledged. So what does this mean? She asks. What do we do now? Elias's face grows serious. Now, we find the Codex before anyone else does. There are others searching for it, Amelia. Dangerous people who would use its power for their own gain, no matter the cost. He holds out the pendant to her. Will you help me? Amelia looks at the pendant, then at Elias. She knows that if she takes it, her life will never be the same. She'll be stepping into a world of danger and mystery, leaving behind everything she's ever known. But as she meets Elias's gaze, she realizes she's already made her decision. She reaches out and takes the pendant, gasping as a jolt of energy courses through her the moment her fingers touch it. I'm in, she says. Elias nods, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Then we leave tonight. Pack light and tell no one where you're going. As they turn to leave the lighthouse, a sudden gust of wind extinguishes the candles, plunging them into darkness. For a moment, all Amelia can see is the glow of the pendant and the gleam of Elias's eyes. In that moment, standing in the dark with a virtual stranger about to embark on a journey to find an artifact of unimaginable power, Amelia should feel afraid. But she doesn't. For the first time in her life, she feels like she's exactly where she's supposed to be. Little does she know, this is just the beginning. The road ahead is fraught with danger, filled with enemies lurking in the shadows and secrets that could shake the very foundations of reality. But that, my friends, is a tale for our next chapter. Are you ready to follow Amelia and Elias on their quest? Because let me tell you, things are about to get real interesting. The journey begins. All right, folks, strap in. This is where our tale really starts to pick up speed. Dawn finds Amelia and Elias on the road, the world flying by outside the windows of Elias's sleek black car. Amelia's whole life is packed into a single backpack, and the pendant hangs heavy around her neck, a constant reminder of the incredible journey she's embarked on. Where are we going? Amelia asks, watching as the familiar landscape of her hometown fades into the distance. Elias's hands tighten on the steering wheel. Rome, he says. The first clue to the Codex's location is hidden in the catacombs beneath the city. Amelia's eyes widen. Rome? But that's halfway across the world. Elias shoots her a sideways glance, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Better get comfortable, then. We've got a long journey ahead of us. And what a journey it is, my friends. They travel by car, by plane, by boat. With every mile, Amelia feels the weight of her old life falling away, replaced by a growing sense of excitement and purpose. But it's not all smooth sailing. Oh no, that would be too easy for our intrepid heroes. Their first taste of real danger comes in Paris. They're there to meet one of Elias's contacts, a man who supposedly has information about the Codex. But as they're walking through the winding streets of Montmartre, Amelia gets that prickly feeling on the back of her neck. The feeling of being watched. She turns to tell Elias, but before she can get the words out, all hell breaks loose. Shots ring out, shattering the peaceful Parisian evening. Elias grabs Amelia's hand, pulling her into a narrow alleyway. "Run," he shouts, his voice barely audible over the sound of screaming tourists and shattering glass. Amelia's heart is pounding in her chest as they race through the maze-like streets of Montmartre. She can hear footsteps behind them, gaining ground with every second. "Who are they?" she gasps, ducking as a bullet whizzes past her ear. "The Obsidian Order," Elias growls, pulling her around another corner. "They're after the Codex too. And they're not known for playing nice." They burst out onto a crowded square, weaving through startled tourists and street performers. Amelia catches a glimpse of their pursuers, men and women in dark clothing, their faces set in grim determination. Suddenly, Elias veers off to the side, dragging Amelia into a small, dimly lit cafe. They push through to the back, ignoring the protests of the staff, and burst out into another alleyway. There, Elias points to a rusty fire escape clinging to the side of a building. Without hesitation, they start to climb. They reach the rooftop just as their pursuers round the corner. Amelia's lungs are burning, her legs trembling with exertion, but Elias urges her on. They leap from rooftop to rooftop, the wind whipping at their clothes, the streets of Paris spread out below them like a glittering carpet. Finally, after what seems like hours, they stop. Elias pulls Amelia down behind a chimney stack, both of them breathing hard. "I think we lost them," he whispers, peering cautiously over the edge of the roof. Amelia slumps against the chimney, her mind reeling. "That was intense," she manages to say between gasps. Elias turns to her, his eyes filled with a mixture of concern and admiration. "You did well," he says softly. Not everyone could keep their cool in a situation like that. As the adrenaline fades, Amelia becomes acutely aware of how close they are. She can feel the warmth of Elias's body, see the stubble on his jawline, smell the faint scent of his cologne mixed with sweat. For a moment, they just stare at each other, the air between them charged with something more than just the aftermath of their escape. Amelia finds herself leaning in, drawn by some invisible force. But Elias clears his throat and pulls back slightly. "We should go," he says, his voice rougher than usual. "It's not safe to stay in one place for too long." Amelia nods, trying to ignore the pang of disappointment in her chest. As they make their way carefully down from the roof, she can't help but wonder what just happened. And more importantly, what didn't happen. The rest of their time in Paris is a blur of constant movement and paranoia. They switch hotels every night, never staying in one place for more than a few hours. Elias's contact is a no-show, likely scared off by the Obsidian Order's presence. It's not until they're on a train speeding towards Rome that Amelia finally has a chance to process everything that's happened. "Elias," she says, watching the French countryside zoom past the window, "I need you to be honest with me. How dangerous is this really? And why me? Why am I so important in all of this?" Elias is quiet for a long moment, his face unreadable. Finally, he turns to her, his eyes serious. "It's more dangerous than you can imagine," he says softly. "The Codex, it's not just some powerful artifact. It's the key to reshaping reality itself. In the wrong hands, it could bring about the end of everything we know." He reaches out, his fingers brushing against the pendant around Amelia's neck. "And you're not just a descendant, Amelia. You're the last person alive with the power to control the Codex." Amelia's breath catches in her throat. "What do you mean?" Elias's eyes are intense, boring into hers. "I mean that you're special, Amelia. More special than you could ever imagine. And that's why we have to keep you safe. Because if the Obsidian Order gets their hands on you..." He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. Amelia can see the fear in his eyes, can feel it mirrored in her own heart. As the train rushes on towards Rome, Amelia realizes that her life has changed irrevocably. She's stepped into a world of danger and magic, of ancient secrets and deadly enemies. And at the center of it all is her connection with Elias, a connection that grows stronger with each passing day, each shared danger, each quiet moment. Little does she know, the true test of that connection is yet to come. For in Rome, buried deep beneath centuries of history, a truth awaits that will shake the very foundations of everything Amelia thought she knew. But that, my friends, is a tale for our next chapter. Are you ready to descend into the depths of Rome's ancient catacombs? To uncover secrets that have lain dormant for millennia? Because let me tell you, what awaits Amelia and Elias in those dark tunnels will change everything. Secrets beneath the eternal city. Rome. The eternal city. A place where history breathes through every stone, where ancient secrets lurk around every corner. As Amelia steps off the train, the weight of centuries presses down on her, as tangible as the pendant around her neck. Elias leads her through the bustling streets, past towering ruins and Baroque fountains. They weave through crowds of tourists, always alert, always watching for any sign of the Obsidian Order. Where exactly are we going? Amelia asks, struggling to keep up with Elias's long strides. The catacomb of Calixtus, Elias replies, his eyes scanning the crowds. It's one of the oldest and largest catacombs in Rome. And if my research is correct, it's where we'll find the next clue to the Codex's location. As night falls, they make their way to the outskirts of the city. The entrance to the catacombs is closed to tourists at this hour, but Elias leads Amelia to a hidden entrance, concealed behind a tangle of vines and ancient stonework. "Ready?" he asks, his hand on the door. Amelia takes a deep breath, steeling herself. Ready. The door creaks open, revealing a yawning darkness beyond. Elias flicks on a flashlight, and they descend into the earth, leaving the world of the living behind. The catacombs are a maze of narrow tunnels and low-ceilinged chambers, the walls lined with ancient burial niches. The air is thick with the dust of centuries, and the silence is so complete it seems to press against Amelia's eardrums. They walk for what feels like hours, guided by marks on the walls that only Elias seems able to see. Amelia's nerves are on edge, every shadow seeming to hide a potential threat. Finally, they emerge into a larger chamber. Elias's flashlight beam plays across the walls, revealing intricate frescoes depicting scenes from ancient myths and legends. This is it, Elias breathes, his eyes wide with excitement. The chamber of the Codex. As they examine the frescoes more closely, Amelia notices something strange. "Elias," she says, her voice hushed. "Look at this." She points to a recurring figure in the frescoes, a woman with long, flowing hair holding what looks like a book. A woman who, Amelia realizes with a start, looks remarkably like her. Elias nods grimly. "The first keeper," he says. "Your ancestor. The one who hid the Codex all those centuries ago." Amelia's mind reels. She reaches out to touch the fresco, and as her fingers brush the ancient paint, something extraordinary happens. The pendant around her neck begins to glow, pulsing with a soft, ethereal light. The frescoes on the walls seem to come alive, the figures moving and shifting before their eyes. And then Amelia hears a voice. A woman's voice, echoing not in the chamber, but inside her own mind. "Child of my blood," the voice says. "The time has come. The Codex calls to you as it called to me. But beware. Great power comes at a great price. Are you willing to pay it?" Amelia gasps, staggering back. Elias catches her, his arms strong and steady around her. "What is it?" he asks, his voice urgent. "What did you see?" But before Amelia can answer, a slow clapping echoes through the chamber. They whirl around to see a figure emerging from the shadows, a woman with sleek dark hair and eyes that gleam with malice. "Well done," the woman says, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You've led us right to it. I must say, I'm impressed." Elias pushes Amelia behind him, his body tense. "Victoria," he growls. "I should have known you'd show up." The woman, Victoria, smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. "Oh, Elias," she purrs. "Did you really think you could keep something like this from me? From us?" As if on cue, more figures emerge from the shadows, members of the Obsidian Order, their weapons trained on Amelia and Elias. "Now," Victoria says, her voice hardening, "hand over the girl and the pendant, or things are going to get very unpleasant." Amelia's heart is pounding. She looks at Elias, sees the conflict raging in his eyes. They're outnumbered, outgunned. What can they possibly do? But then she feels it. A surge of power emanating from the pendant, from the very walls of the chamber. The voice of her ancestor echoes in her mind. "The power is within you. Use it." Without fully understanding what she's doing, Amelia steps forward. She raises her hand, the pendant glowing brighter than ever. "No," she says, her voice ringing with an authority she didn't know she possessed. "I don't think we will." And then, my friends, all hell breaks loose. But that's a story for our next chapter. Are you ready to see what happens when Amelia truly begins to tap into her power? Because let me tell you, it's going to be one wild ride. power awakened. All right, folks, hold on to your seats. This is where things get really intense. As Amelia stands there, hand outstretched, the air in the chamber begins to crackle with energy. The glow from her pendant intensifies, bathing everything in an otherworldly light. Victoria's smug expression falters. What are you doing?" she demands, a note of fear creeping into her voice. But Amelia doesn't answer. Her eyes are glowing now, the same ethereal light as the pendant. When she speaks, her voice echoes with power. "You should not have come here," she says, but it's not just her voice. It's the voice of her ancestor, of all the keepers who came before her. "This place is not for you." Suddenly, the frescoes on the walls come to life. Figures of ancient warriors step out of the paintings, their spectral forms solidifying as they advance on the obsidian order. Chaos erupts in the chamber. Victoria's men open fire, but their bullets pass harmlessly through the spectral warriors. Elias springs into action, disarming the nearest attacker with a move that speaks of years of training. And Amelia is at the center of it all. She doesn't know how she's doing it, but somehow she's controlling these apparitions, directing them with her thoughts. "Amelia!" Elias shouts over the commotion. "We need to get out of here." His voice breaks through her trance. Amelia nods, then with a thought, commands the spectral warriors to clear a path to the exit. They run through the twisting tunnels of the catacombs, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. Amelia's heart is pounding, her mind reeling from what just happened. She can still feel the power coursing through her veins, wild and untamed. Finally, they burst out into the cool night air. But they don't stop running until they're several blocks away, hidden in the shadow of an ancient church. Elias turns to Amelia, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and concern. "Are you okay?" he asks, his hands gently grasping her shoulders. Amelia nods, still trying to catch her breath. I think so." "Elias, what was that? How did I do that?" Elias shakes his head, a small smile playing at his lips. "That, Amelia, was you tapping into your true power. The power of the keepers. It's incredible." For a moment, they just stand there, the weight of what just happened settling over them. Then, almost unconsciously, they move closer to each other. Amelia can feel the heat of Elias's body, see the flecks of gold in his eyes. And then, finally, it happens. Their lips meet in a kiss that's been building since the moment they met. It's passionate, desperate, a release of all the tension and fear and exhilaration of the past few days. When they finally break apart, they're both breathless. Elias rests his forehead against Amelia's, his eyes closed. "We shouldn't," he whispers, but his arms tighten around her. "Why not?" Amelia asks, her fingers tangling in his hair. Elias opens his eyes, and the intensity in them takes Amelia's breath away. "Because," he says softly, "I'm falling in love with you. And that makes you a weakness. A vulnerability I can't afford." Amelia's heart soars at his words, even as it aches at the pain in his voice. "Love isn't a weakness, Elias," she says. "It's strength. And right now, we need all the strength we can get." Before Elias can respond, the sound of sirens cuts through the night. "We need to move," he says, reluctantly pulling away from Amelia. "It's not safe here." As they disappear into the Roman night, Amelia's mind is whirling. She's unlocked a power she never knew she had, kissed a man she's rapidly falling for, and is now on the run from a dangerous secret society. But amid all the chaos and danger, she feels something she's never felt before, a sense of purpose, of destiny. Little does she know, the road ahead is fraught with even greater dangers. The Obsidian Order is not an enemy to be taken lightly, and Victoria is not a woman who gives up easily. And then there's the Codex itself. As they draw closer to its hiding place, Amelia will have to confront the true nature of her power and the terrible price that comes with it. But that, my friends, is a tale for our next chapter. Are you ready to follow Amelia and Elias as they race across Europe, one step ahead of their enemies? To see Amelia's powers grow, even as the danger around them intensifies? Because let me tell you, this journey is far from over. And the greatest challenges, well, they're yet to come. A dance of shadows and light. All right, my friends, let's dive back into our tale. The stakes are higher than ever, the danger more real, and the connection between our heroes, well, it's about to be tested in ways they never imagined. After their narrow escape in Rome, Amelia and Elias are on the move. They crisscross Europe like shadows, never staying in one place for more than a night. Venice, Prague, Vienna, the great cities of the old world blur together in a whirlwind of ancient streets and hidden safe houses. All the while, Amelia's powers are growing. She practices in secret, learning to control the energy that now seems to constantly hum beneath her skin. Sometimes, when she's not paying attention, small objects around her start to float. Once, when a pickpocket tried to snatch her bag in a crowded market, he was thrown back 10 feet by an invisible force. Elias watches her with a mixture of awe and concern. "You're getting stronger," he says one night as they sit on a balcony overlooking the glittering lights of Budapest. "But Amelia, you need to be careful. The more you use your powers, the easier it is for the Obsidian Order to track us." Amelia nods, but she can't help the thrill that runs through her at the thought of her growing abilities. "I know," she says. "But Elias, don't you see? This power, it's a part of me. I can't just ignore it." Elias reaches out, his fingers intertwining with hers. The touch sends a jolt of electricity through Amelia, and for a moment, the lights of the city below flicker and dim. "I'm not asking you to ignore it," Elias says softly. "I'm asking you to master it. Control it. Don't let it control you." Their eyes meet, and for a moment, the world falls away. They've been dancing around their feelings since that kiss in Rome, neither willing to take the next step. But in this moment, the air between them is charged with more than just Amelia's powers. Elias leans in, his lips brushing against Amelia's. It's a soft kiss, tender and full of promise. But as Amelia responds, deepening the kiss, her powers flare. The air around them shimmers, and for a brief moment, they're floating a few inches off the ground. They break apart, both breathless and wide-eyed. "Well," Elias says with a chuckle, "that's new." Amelia laughs, a sound full of joy and wonder. For the first time since this journey began, she feels truly happy, truly alive. But of course, in our story, moments of peace are always short-lived. The next day, as they're making their way through a crowded market in Istanbul, Amelia feels it. A prickle at the back of her neck, a sense of wrongness that makes her skin crawl. "Elias," she whispers, grabbing his arm. "We're being watched." Elias doesn't break stride, but his body tenses. "Where?" he asks, his eyes scanning the crowd. "I'm not sure," Amelia says. "It's just a feeling, but..." She breaks off as she spots a familiar face in the crowd. It's one of Victoria's men, the one who had been in the catacombs in Rome. "There," she hisses, nodding discreetly in the man's direction. Elias sees him too. "Run," he says, his voice low and urgent. "Now." They take off through the market, weaving through the maze of stalls and shoppers. But their pursuer is skilled, and soon they hear more footsteps joining the chase. They burst out of the market onto a busy street. Cars honk as they dash across, narrowly avoiding being hit. Amelia's heart is pounding, her breath coming in short gasps. "This way," Elias shouts, pulling her down a narrow alley. But as they round a corner, they find their path blocked. A group of men in dark clothes stand before them, guns raised. And at their center, a familiar face. Victoria. Well, she says, her red lips curving into a cruel smile. "Fancy meeting you here." Elias pushes Amelia behind him, his body tense and ready for a fight. "Victoria," he growls. "Still doing the Obsidian Order's dirty work, I see." Victoria's eyes narrow. "Oh, Elias," she purrs. "You always did underestimate me. I'm not just doing their work. I'm leading it." She takes a step forward, her eyes fixed on Amelia. "Now, be a good boy and hand over the girl. We have big plans for her." Amelia feels the power rising within her, responding to her fear and anger. The air around them starts to shimmer, small objects beginning to vibrate and lift off the ground. Victoria's eyes widen. "Fascinating," she breathes. "You've grown stronger, little one. But do you really think you can control it? Do you think you can take us all on?" For a moment, Amelia hesitates. She's never used her powers against living people before, not really. The thought terrifies her. But then Elias's hand finds hers, squeezing gently. Together, he whispers. And suddenly, Amelia knows what to do. She closes her eyes, focusing on the energy flowing through her. But this time, instead of pushing it out, she pulls it in. She gathers it, concentrates it, until it feels like her entire body is humming with power. Then, with a thought, she releases it all at once. A shockwave of energy explodes outward, sending Victoria and her men flying. Car alarms blare, windows shatter, and for a moment, the very air seems to ripple like water. When Amelia opens her eyes, she sees Victoria and her men sprawled on the ground, stunned but already beginning to stir. "Come on," Elias says, tugging at her hand. "We need to go. Now." As they run, leaving the chaos behind them, Amelia can't help but feel a mix of exhilaration and fear. Her powers are growing stronger, yes, but at what cost? And how long can they keep running? Little does she know, the greatest test is yet to come. for the Codex is calling, its power reaching out across continents. And as Amelia and Elias race towards their destiny, dark forces are gathering, preparing for a final, cataclysmic confrontation. But that, my friends, is a tale for our next chapter. Are you ready to see what happens when Amelia's powers are pushed to their limits? When the secrets of the Codex are finally revealed? Because let me tell you, the storm that's brewing, it's going to shake the very foundations of our world. Echoes of destiny. All right, gather round, my friends. The story's about to take a turn that'll make your heads spin and your hearts race. Are you ready? Because things are about to get real intense. After their narrow escape in Istanbul, Amelia and Elias go deep underground. They find themselves in a hidden monastery high in the Swiss Alps, a place so secret it doesn't appear on any map. The monastery is a haven for those with special abilities, a place where people like Amelia can learn to control their powers away from prying eyes. It's here that Amelia truly begins to understand the extent of her abilities. Under the tutelage of an ancient monk named Brother Mikhail, Amelia's powers grow by leaps and bounds. She learns to manipulate energy at will, to see the threads of power that connect all living things. One day, during a particularly intense training session, something extraordinary happens. As Amelia meditates, focusing on the energy around her, she suddenly finds herself elsewhere. She's standing in a vast, ethereal space, surrounded by swirling mists and floating fragments of what look like shattered reality. And there, in the center of it all, is a woman. A woman who looks startlingly like Amelia herself, but older, with eyes that hold the wisdom of centuries. Who are you? Amelia asks, her voice echoing strangely in this otherworldly place. The woman smiles, a smile tinged with sadness and hope. I am you, she says. Or rather, I am what you might become. I am the first keeper, the one who hid the Codex all those eons ago. Amelia's mind reels. But how is this possible? How am I here? You're not, the first keeper says. Not physically, at least. This is the space between realities, the place where the power of the Codex resides. And you, my dear, are finally ready to access it. She holds out her hand, and floating above it appears an ancient book, its cover shimmering with otherworldly energy. The Codex. The time has come, the first keeper says. The Codex must be found, must be protected. But be warned, child of my blood. The power it holds, it comes at a terrible price. Before Amelia can ask what she means, the vision begins to fade. The last thing she sees is the first keeper's eyes, filled with a mixture of hope and sorrow. Amelia gasps as she returns to her body, nearly collapsing. Elias is there in an instant, catching her before she falls. Amelia, he cries, his voice thick with concern. What happened? Are you all right? As Amelia looks into his eyes, she feels a pang of fear. Because now she knows. She knows where the Codex is hidden. And she knows that to retrieve it, she'll have to leave Elias behind. But before she can explain, an explosion rocks the monastery. The air fills with smoke and screams. The Obsidian Order has found them. Chaos erupts as dark-clad figures swarm into the monastery. The air crackles with energy as the other gifted individuals fight back, their powers creating a dazzling and terrifying light show. Amelia and Elias fight side by side, their movements in perfect sync. Amelia's powers are stronger than ever, fueled by her recent vision and the desperate need to protect those around her. But the Obsidian Order is relentless. For every attacker they take down, 2 more seem to appear. And then, through the smoke and chaos, Amelia sees her. Victoria, striding through the battle like a dark queen, her eyes fixed on Amelia with predatory intensity. "Give it up, little keeper," Victoria calls out, her voice carrying over the din of battle. "You can't win this fight. Come with us willingly, and we'll spare your friends." Amelia feels a surge of anger. The air around her begins to shimmer with power. "You want to see what I can do?" she shouts back. "Fine. Let me show you." With a cry that seems to shake the very mountains, Amelia releases her power. A wave of pure energy explodes outward, sending the Obsidian Order forces flying. The very stone of the monastery groans and shifts. For a moment, everything is still. Then, with a terrifying rumble, the ceiling begins to collapse. "Amelia!" Elias shouts, grabbing her arm. "We have to get out of here." As they run, dodging falling debris and fleeing Obsidian Order members, Amelia makes a decision. She knows what she has to do. They make it outside just as the monastery collapses behind them. In the distance, they can hear the sound of helicopters approaching. Amelia turns to Elias, her heart breaking even as she steels her resolve. "Elias," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "I know where the codex is, but I have to go alone." Elias's eyes widen. "What?" "No, Amelia, we're in this together. I won't let you face this alone." Amelia cups his face in her hands, memorizing every detail. "You have to," she says softly. "Where I'm going, you can't follow. Not this time." She kisses him then, pouring all her love and fear and hope into it. And as she does, she uses her power one last time. A gentle pulse of energy that sends Elias stumbling back, away from her. "I'm sorry," she whispers, tears streaming down her face. "I love you." And then, before Elias can recover, before he can stop her, Amelia closes her eyes and reaches for that place between realities. There's a flash of light, a rushing sound like 1,000 winds. And Amelia is gone. But where has she gone, you ask? And what awaits her in the realm of the Codex? Well, my friends, that's a tale for our next chapter. Are you ready to follow Amelia into a realm beyond reality itself? To see her confront her destiny and the true nature of her powers? Because let me tell you, what's coming next, it's going to change everything. Beyond the veil. All right, my friends, take a deep breath. We're about to plunge into the heart of our story, into a realm where reality bends and breaks, where the very fabric of existence is as malleable as clay. Are you ready? Because Amelia's greatest challenge is about to begin. When Amelia opens her eyes, she finds herself in a place beyond imagination. The realm of the Codex is a swirling vortex of colors and shapes, of fragments of realities that never were and possibilities that might yet be. It's beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, a place where the laws of physics are mere suggestions. As Amelia floats through this impossible space, she hears a voice. No, not just one voice, a chorus of voices, all speaking as one. "Welcome, Keeper," the voices say. "You have come at last." Amelia turns to find herself face to face with not just the first keeper, but with all the keepers who came before her. They are spectral figures, glowing with an inner light, their eyes filled with the wisdom of ages. "The Codex," Amelia says, her voice echoing strangely in this place. "Where is it?" The first keeper steps forward, her smile sad and knowing. "It is here," she says, gesturing around them. "All of this, all that you see, it is the Codex. And you, Amelia, are the key to unlocking its true power." As the first keeper speaks, the swirling energies around them coalesce, forming into a massive book that hovers before Amelia. Its pages are filled with writing in a language she's never seen before, yet somehow understands perfectly. But be warned, the first keeper continues. The power of the Codex comes at a great cost. To wield it is to reshape reality itself. And with that power comes the temptation to play God. Amelia reaches out, her fingers brushing the cover of the Codex. As she does, visions flash through her mind, glimpses of possible futures, of worlds reshaped by the Codex's power. She sees herself as a benevolent goddess, creating a utopia. But she also sees darker visions, worlds torn apart by her mistakes, realities warped beyond recognition. I don't know if I'm ready for this," Amelia whispers, overwhelmed by the weight of the responsibility. The first keeper's eyes are full of compassion. "None of us ever are," she says softly. "But the choice is yours, as it has always been. Will you take up the mantle of the keeper? Will you protect the Codex even at the cost of your own happiness?" Amelia thinks of Elias, of the life she left behind. She thinks of Victoria and the Obsidian Order, of the destruction they would wreak if they got their hands on this power. And she makes her choice. "I will," she says, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I accept the responsibility. I will be the keeper." As soon as the words leave her mouth, the Codex begins to glow. It opens of its own accord, its pages flipping rapidly as energy pours out of it and into Amelia. The sensation is indescribable, like being torn apart and remade, like touching the heart of creation itself. Amelia screams, her body arching as the power of the Codex flows into her, becoming a part of her very being. When it's over, Amelia falls to her knees, gasping. She feels different, more powerful, yes, but also more connected to everything around her. She can feel the pulse of reality itself, can see the threads that bind all of existence together. The first keeper kneels beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "It is done," she says. "You are now the keeper of the Codex, the guardian of reality itself." But before Amelia can respond, a dark laugh echoes through the realm. A figure steps out of the swirling energies, Victoria, her eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Well, Victoria purrs, her voice dripping with malice. "Isn't this touching? But I'm afraid your little ceremony is about to be cut short." Amelia stands, power crackling around her. "How did you get here?" she demands. Victoria's smile is cruel. "Oh, my dear," she says. "Did you really think you were the only one with the power to access this?" Shadows of betrayal. The realm trembled beneath Amelia's feet as Victoria stepped closer, her gaze alight with triumph. How had she followed Amelia into this sacred place? The space between realities should have been beyond the reach of mortals, but Victoria had always been one step ahead. Victoria's smirk was the only warning Amelia had before the ground beneath her cracked. Amelia stumbled back, power surging in her hands as she felt the energy of the codex pulsing through her veins. It was intoxicating, this power, this connection to everything, but it was also terrifying. With just a thought, she could destroy everything Victoria had ever built. But she couldn't give in to that temptation. Elias had warned her about this. He had said love was not a weakness, that power, when wielded in the wrong way, could consume her. And in that moment, Amelia realized this wasn't just a battle for control of the codex. It was a battle for her soul. The inner conflict. Amelia looked at Victoria, her greatest enemy, but the truth was, she was also staring at her greatest fear. Could she wield the codex's power without being corrupted? Could she hold on to love, to Elias, while carrying the weight of this ancient legacy? The whispers of the codex swirled around her, beckoning her to embrace the full extent of her abilities, to end this confrontation with a flick of her hand. But Amelia knew better than to listen to the seductive call of power. You think you're strong enough to control the codex? Victoria taunted, stepping closer, her voice dripping with disdain. You're a fool, Amelia. You'll only destroy everything you care about. Amelia's fingers twitched, energy crackling around her, but she breathed deeply, grounding herself in the memory of Elias, his touch, his words, and the life they had shared before this moment. She couldn't let herself become what Victoria wanted her to be, an unexpected ally. Before Victoria could strike, a flash of light erupted between them, and out of the swirling chaos stepped someone Amelia never expected, Brother Mikhail. His old, withered face was stern, his robes flying like a beacon of calm in the storm of magic and destruction. You've gone too far, Victoria, Mikhail said, his voice soft but filled with power. The codex does not belong to you. Victoria laughed, but there was unease in her eyes. I don't care about the codex. I care about power, old man. And Amelia is standing in the way of everything I've worked for. With a flick of her wrist, Victoria sent a wave of dark energy toward Mikhail, but Amelia stepped forward, raising her hand. A barrier of light shimmered around them, absorbing the impact. You're wrong, Victoria, Amelia said, her voice steady. The codex isn't about power. It's about balance, and you'll never understand that. The final confrontation. As the two forces clashed, the space between realities began to crack, a battle of light and darkness swirling through the air. Amelia could feel the codex within her, alive, sentient, guiding her every move. But something was different now. With Mikhail by her side, Amelia felt centered. No longer was she just a vessel for power. She was a guardian, a protector, and that meant something far greater than personal gain. Victoria's rage grew, but so did Amelia's determination. For every strike Victoria made, Amelia countered, not with aggression, but with precision and control. She wasn't fighting just for herself or for the codex. She was fighting for the future of the world and for the love that anchored her to it. The light intensified as Amelia summoned all the strength the codex had given her. The space trembled under the force of their final clash, but in the end, only one remained standing. Amelia. With a final cry, Victoria was engulfed in darkness, vanishing into the abyss from which she had come. The space between realities stabilized, and Amelia fell to her knees, exhausted but victorious. Return to love. Amelia's eyes fluttered open, and she found herself back in the physical world. The realm of the Codex was gone, but the power still lingered within her. Elias was beside her, his hand gently stroking her hair, his face filled with concern. "You did it," he whispered, his voice a mix of relief and awe. "You defeated her." Amelia nodded, but she was too tired to speak. She had won, but at what cost? She had unlocked the full potential of the Codex, and now it was her responsibility to guard it forever. Could she handle that burden? As she looked into Elias's eyes, though, she knew she didn't have to do it alone. The weight of power. As the dust settled, Amelia took a deep breath, the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Elias knelt beside her, his hand brushing against hers, grounding her. The moment felt surreal, like emerging from a dream filled with chaos and power into the familiar warmth of love. "You did it," he said, a mixture of admiration and relief flooding his voice. "You faced her, and you were incredible." Amelia felt a swell of pride, but also a gnawing doubt. "But at what cost?" she whispered, her gaze distant. "I've unlocked powers I barely understand, and I don't know if I can control them." Elias's expression softened, his eyes filled with warmth. "You faced the darkness, Amelia. You found strength in yourself that you didn't know existed. Together, we can figure this out. You're not alone in this." Amelia smiled faintly, but the weight of responsibility loomed large. The Codex had chosen her, but it also made her the target of those who sought power at any cost. She needed to ensure it was protected, whatever the cost. Shadows from the past. In the days that followed, Amelia and Elias returned to the monastery to regroup. They spent long nights planning their next moves, piecing together what remained of the Codex's secrets. But shadows from the past lingered, haunting their every step. "Victoria may be gone, but the Obsidian Order won't give up," Elias said one evening, his brow furrowed in concentration. "They'll be back, and they'll want revenge." Amelia nodded, feeling the weight of those words settle in her chest. What if they come after us again? What if they find out about the Codex? Elias reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. "We'll be ready. We have allies. We can reach out to others who have been touched by the Codex, those who can help us keep it safe." Just then, a knock echoed through the hall, drawing their attention. The door creaked open to reveal Brother Mikhail, his expression grave. "I have news," he said, stepping inside. "There's been a disturbance." Amelia's heart raced. What kind of disturbance? The Obsidian Order has mobilized. They're searching for remnants of the Codex, and they know you're alive, Amelia. We must act quickly. Allies in unexpected places. With Mikhail's guidance, they set off to meet potential allies, other descendants who shared the burden of the Codex's legacy. Their first stop was in Florence, where a woman named Isadora resided. Isadora was said to possess abilities similar to Amelia's, and her knowledge could prove invaluable. As they entered the city, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the historic architecture. They made their way through bustling streets filled with art and culture, the air thick with the aroma of freshly baked bread and roasted chestnuts. Upon reaching Isadora's home, they were greeted by an unassuming woman with deep brown eyes and an air of wisdom. "Welcome," she said, motioning them inside. "I've been expecting you." Once inside, they exchanged stories. Isadora spoke of her own struggles with her abilities, the trials she faced when she first encountered the Codex. "I've seen its power, and I've felt its weight," she said, her voice steady. "You're not alone in this fight, Amelia." The gathering storm. As the days turned into weeks, Amelia, Elias, and their growing group of allies trained together, sharing knowledge and honing their skills. They learned to harness their powers, discovering the incredible potential within each of them. Amelia, in particular, grew stronger, her connection to the Codex deepening. One evening, as they sat around a flickering fire, Amelia spoke of her vision in the realm of the Codex. "I saw the first keeper." She said that the Codex must be protected, but it also warned of the consequences of wielding such power. Mikhail nodded thoughtfully. "The power of the Codex is a double-edged sword. You must remain vigilant. The temptation to use it for personal gain is always lurking." Elias squeezed Amelia's hand, his gaze unwavering. "We'll face it together. Whatever comes our way, we'll find a way through it." But even as they prepared, darkness gathered in the distance. The Obsidian Order was mobilizing, their efforts becoming more desperate. Rumors began to circulate about a powerful ally they had recruited, one who had the ability to match Amelia's burgeoning powers. The Dance of Fates. The time came for their confrontation with the Order. They gathered in a hidden alcove beneath the city, the air thick with tension and anticipation. Amelia could feel the energy around them, alive, electric, as though the very walls were holding their breath. Elias stood beside her, a fierce protector, his eyes scanning the shadows. "Remember, no matter what happens, we stick together," he whispered. As the confrontation began, the air shimmered with magic. Figures cloaked in dark robes emerged from the shadows, their faces obscured but their intent clear. At the forefront stood Victoria, her eyes glinting with hatred and power. "I've come for what belongs to me," she declared, her voice echoing through the chamber. "Amelia, the Codex is not yours to wield." Amelia stepped forward, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. "It was never about possession, Victoria. It's about protection. You don't understand the power you're playing with." With a flick of her wrist, the battle began, a swirling chaos of light and dark, energy crackling in the air. Amelia felt the Codex within her, guiding her, and for the first time, she understood what it meant to wield such power. The clash of titans. As the battle raged, Amelia focused on the energy surrounding her, weaving it into a shield to protect her allies. Elias fought beside her, his movements graceful and precise as he took down enemy after enemy. But Victoria was a force to be reckoned with, her dark magic swirling like a tempest. She directed her fury toward Amelia, sending blasts of energy that lit up the chamber like fireworks. "Do you really think you can stand against me?" Victoria screamed, her voice filled with rage. In that moment, Amelia felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. She drew on the strength of her allies, the wisdom of the First Keeper, and the love she shared with Elias. Together, she shouted, the word echoing in her heart. With a final surge of energy, Amelia and Elias combined their powers, creating a blinding light that enveloped the chamber. Victoria staggered back, the light consuming her darkness. The aftermath. As the dust settled, the order lay defeated. Amelia stood, breathless, feeling the power of the Codex ebbing within her. The fight had changed her, but it had also solidified her purpose. We did it, Elias breathed, pulling Amelia into his arms. The warmth of his embrace was a soothing balm after the chaos of battle. You were incredible. Amelia smiled, feeling the weight of their victory, but her heart still carried the burden of the Codex's power. It's not over yet, is it? Elias shook his head. No. We have much to do. The Codex still needs protecting, and there will always be those who seek to misuse its power. As they stood together, the sun began to rise, casting golden rays across the remnants of their battle. Amelia knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, love, and the promise of adventure. A new dawn. In the days that followed, Amelia and Elias traveled together, sharing their story and the lessons learned along the way. They built a network of allies, ensuring that the Codex remained safe, teaching others about the responsibilities that came with such power. Amelia embraced her role as the keeper, not just of the Codex, but of the bonds forged through love and friendship. And as she stood beside Elias, she realized that the true power wasn't just in magic, it was in the connections they shared, in the love that had blossomed amidst the shadows. Together, they faced whatever challenges came their way, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could conquer anything. And so, as the sun rose on a new day, Amelia smiled, ready to embrace the adventures that lay ahead. Echoes of the past. With the sun setting on the horizon, Amelia and Elias took a moment to breathe and reflect on everything they had achieved. The threat of the Obsidian Order had receded, at least for now, but the journey of the Keeper was far from over. One evening, as they gathered with their allies in a cozy, hidden enclave near Florence, Amelia felt a surge of determination. The atmosphere was alive with stories and laughter, a welcome reprieve from the tension of their recent battles. I've been thinking, she began, standing before her friends. We need to ensure the Codex is protected, not just from those who want to misuse it, but also from becoming a target again. We can't let its power cause any more pain. Isadora nodded, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. I know of a few ancient artifacts scattered across Europe that hold secrets about the Codex. We could seek them out and build a network of protectors. Elias squeezed Amelia's hand, his expression filled with pride. That's a brilliant idea. Together, we can ensure that the Codex remains a force for good. As they shared their plans, the camaraderie in the room swelled, and laughter echoed off the walls. But Amelia's heart felt heavy with the knowledge that danger was still lurking in the shadows. A new threat. Days later, as they set out to explore the first location, a hidden temple in the hills of Tuscany, Amelia's unease deepened. She could feel the energy of the Codex pulsing in her veins, guiding her, but it also whispered warnings. The temple was ancient, its entrance obscured by creeping vines and wildflowers. As they pushed through the underbrush, the air felt charged with potential, as if the very stones held secrets waiting to be uncovered. Inside, they found remnants of a long-lost civilization, murals depicting the keepers of old, and inscriptions that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. This is incredible, Amelia breathed, running her fingers along the carvings. It's like they were expecting us. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet, and a section of the wall crumbled away, revealing a hidden chamber filled with glistening artifacts. But as they stepped inside, a voice rang out, a deep, chilling tone that sent shivers down Amelia's spine. "Foolish mortals," it echoed. "You dare to disturb the slumber of the ancient ones?" Out of the shadows stepped a figure cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing with malevolence. It was a man they had thought defeated, a remnant of the Obsidian Order, Victoria's ally, a sorcerer named Darius. The confrontation. Darius, Elias growled, stepping protectively in front of Amelia. "We thought you were gone." "Oh, but you see, I've only just begun," Darius sneered, his fingers crackling with dark energy. "The Codex belongs to us, and I will not let you stand in my way." Amelia could feel the tension rising as the air grew thick with magic. "We won't let you take it," she replied, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. Darius laughed, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "You think you can stop me? The power of the Codex flows through you, but you're still untrained, still naive." With a flick of his wrist, dark energy shot toward them, forcing Amelia to instinctively raise her hands. The pendant around her neck glowed fiercely, and she felt the presence of the keepers urging her to harness her powers. In a flash of intuition, she channeled the energy into a barrier, deflecting Darius's attack. "Elias," she shouted, urgency flooding her voice. "Now!" Elias leaped forward, using his own training to counter Darius's magic, but it was clear they were outmatched. Darius was fueled by a dark energy that twisted his very essence, and they needed to work together to stand a chance. The power of unity. As Darius unleashed a series of powerful spells, Amelia felt the energy of the Codex surge within her. It was more than just power, it was a connection to her ancestors, to the keepers who had come before her. She knew now that she wasn't just a descendant, she was the embodiment of their legacy. "Elias, we have to combine our powers." Amelia shouted, urgency in her tone. "Trust me." Elias nodded, his determination clear. Together, then. They stood back to back, channeling their energies as they prepared to confront Darius. As the dark sorcerer advanced, they focused their intentions, letting the light of the Codex guide them. With one unified cry, they unleashed their powers, a radiant wave of energy that clashed with Darius's darkness. The two forces collided, creating a shockwave that reverberated through the temple. Amelia could feel the ground shift beneath her, but she kept her focus, willing the energy to grow, to encompass everything they had fought for. The room filled with light, illuminating the ancient walls as the energy swirled around them. The reckoning. In that moment, Amelia understood the true nature of the Codex. It wasn't merely an artifact of power, it was a manifestation of unity, love, and sacrifice. As they poured their hearts into their magic, the light began to overpower the darkness. Darius screamed in rage as the energy consumed him, his dark magic unraveling before their eyes. The shadow that had once loomed over Amelia began to fade, revealing the strength she had within her. With one final push, they expelled the darkness from the temple, and as Darius's form dissolved into the ether, the energy around Amelia and Elias enveloped them in a protective embrace. Breathless and trembling, they stood together, the echoes of their victory resonating in the air. Amelia looked into Elias's eyes, and in that moment, everything felt right. They had faced the darkness together, and love had triumphed. A new era. As the dust settled and the light faded, Amelia and Elias took a moment to catch their breath. The temple felt different now, lighter, free from the weight of the darkness that had plagued it. "We did it," Elias said, his voice filled with wonder. "We defeated him." Amelia smiled, the relief washing over her. Together. But as they made their way out of the temple, Amelia's thoughts turned to the future. The Codex still held many secrets, and the journey to protect it was far from over. They had allies now, but there were still threats lurking in the shadows. "Where do we go from here?" Amelia asked, her heart racing with possibilities. Elias took her hand, his grip steady and reassuring. "We keep moving forward. We gather our allies, and we prepare for whatever comes next. The Codex is safe for now, but we can't let our guard down." With renewed purpose, they stepped back into the world, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Amelia felt a surge of hope, knowing that with Elias by her side, they could conquer anything. The gathering of allies. Emerging from the temple into the vibrant twilight, Amelia and Elias felt an undeniable shift in the air, a renewed sense of purpose driving them forward. The light of the setting sun bathed the landscape in hues of gold and crimson, casting a warm glow on the path ahead. They were no longer merely seekers of knowledge, they were guardians of the Codex, protectors of a legacy that stretched back through the ages. As they traveled to gather their allies, they ventured through quaint villages and bustling cities. Each place held its own stories, its own secrets, and Amelia was determined to learn as much as she could. With each interaction, she felt her connection to the Codex deepening, weaving together the strands of history and magic that surrounded her. "Let's head to the library in Venice first," Elias suggested one evening as they sat overlooking the Grand Canal. "I've heard whispers of a scholar there who has insights into the Codex's origins." "Perfect," Amelia replied, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I've always wanted to see the historic libraries of Venice. They say the books are as old as the city itself." The thought of exploring the labyrinth of shelves and tomes filled Amelia with anticipation, and the promise of discovering new allies ignited her adventurous spirit. The scholar's insight. Arriving in Venice, the couple navigated the narrow, winding streets, their hearts beating with the rhythm of the city. As they approached the library, the scent of aged paper and ink filled the air, creating a soothing atmosphere that reminded Amelia of home. Inside, the dim light highlighted shelves overflowing with ancient texts, and as they made their way through the rows, a figure emerged from behind a stack of books. It was Isabella, a scholar renowned for her knowledge of ancient artifacts. "Amelia Blackwood," Isabella said, her voice rich and warm. "I've been expecting you. Your reputation precedes you, young keeper." Amelia's cheeks flushed at the compliment. "Thank you, but I'm still learning." "Learning is part of the journey," Isabella replied, leading them to a secluded reading room. "I have much to share. The Codex is more than just a book. It's a living entity, and it chose you for a reason." As they spoke, Isabella shared insights into the Codex's history, revealing that it had been entrusted to a lineage of keepers, each tasked with protecting its secrets. "But there are always those who would seek to exploit that power," she warned. "You must be vigilant." The shadow of betrayal. Days turned into weeks as Amelia, Elias, and their growing circle of allies worked tirelessly to understand the Codex and prepare for future confrontations. However, unease lingered in the air. Despite their efforts, they could feel the Obsidian Order lurking, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Then, one fateful night, a shadow fell over their newfound peace. While gathered at their safe house, Amelia felt a cold chill run down her spine. The door creaked open, and a familiar figure stepped inside. Victoria, her expression twisted with determination. "I've come to reclaim what is rightfully mine," she declared, her voice steady and chilling. Behind her, members of the Obsidian Order emerged, weapons drawn. "Leave now, Victoria," Elias warned, stepping in front of Amelia protectively. "You won't take the Codex from us." Victoria laughed, the sound echoing through the room. "You still don't understand, do you? The Codex belongs to those who are strong enough to wield it. You've merely been its caretakers." Amelia felt a surge of fear, but as she looked at Elias, determination filled her heart. "You're wrong," she said, stepping forward. "It's not about strength. It's about protecting the legacy and ensuring it never falls into the wrong hands." The final battle. The confrontation escalated into chaos, energy crackling in the air as spells and curses flew between the two sides. Amelia summoned her power, feeling the Codex's energy flow through her, guiding her as she fought alongside her friends. The battle raged on, with each moment bringing more danger. Elias and Amelia fought side by side, their movements synchronized as if they were two halves of the same whole. But as the conflict intensified, it became clear that Victoria had one last trick up her sleeve. "Fools!" Victoria shouted as she unleashed a torrent of dark magic. "You cannot hope to defeat me. I am more powerful than you can imagine." Amelia felt the dark energy washing over her, threatening to engulf her. But in that moment, she remembered the strength of her ancestors, the lessons learned from the keepers who had come before her. With a defiant cry, she reached deep within, summoning all the power she had within her. Together, she shouted, and with Elias at her side, they combined their forces, creating a brilliant shield of light that pushed back against Victoria's darkness. In a blinding flash, the light consumed the shadows, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. The echoes of their past battles, the memories of their struggles, and the love they shared coalesced into a force so strong that it shattered Victoria's hold on the Codex. A new dawn. When the light faded, Amelia stood victorious, the remnants of darkness dissipating around her. Victoria, weakened and defeated, staggered back into the shadows. "This isn't over," she hissed before disappearing into the night. Elias rushed to Amelia's side, his expression a mix of awe and concern. "You did it," he breathed, his voice trembling. "You were incredible." Amelia felt a swell of relief wash over her. "We did it together." As they surveyed the aftermath of the battle, their allies began to gather around them, weary but triumphant. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. But the victory felt bittersweet. "Where do we go from here?" Amelia asked, glancing around at her friends. "We continue," Elias replied, a determined glint in his eyes. "We protect the Codex, build a new legacy for future keepers, and ensure that no one can ever exploit its power again." The legacy of the keepers. In the months that followed, Amelia and Elias dedicated themselves to their new mission. They established a sanctuary for other descendants, a safe haven where they could learn about their powers and the history of the Codex. Amelia found joy in teaching others, sharing the knowledge she had gained and the strength she had discovered within herself. As time passed, the fear that had once gripped Amelia began to fade. She no longer felt burdened by the weight of her destiny. Instead, she embraced it. She was not just a keeper of the Codex, she was a leader, a protector, and most importantly, she was in love. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over their sanctuary, Elias took Amelia's hand. "I know the future is uncertain," he said, his voice steady. "But I want you to know that I'm here for every step of the journey." Amelia smiled, warmth blooming in her chest. "And I'm here with you. Together, we can face anything." In that moment, they both knew that their love was a force more powerful than any artifact, a force that could change the world, one whispered secret at a time. As the final rays of the sun sank below the horizon, casting the ancient sanctuary in a golden glow, Amelia stood at the edge of the cliff, the Codex glowing faintly in her hand. The battle against Victoria was behind them, but the weight of what lay ahead pressed heavily on her heart. Elias approached, his presence steady and grounding, yet his eyes, like hers, carried the burden of the unknown. "We stopped Victoria," Amelia said quietly, her voice steady but distant. "But the Codex, it's not done with us. There's something more. I can feel it." Elias nodded, stepping closer, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "You've always known it was more than just a book, Amelia. It's alive, guiding you. But what is it showing you now?" Amelia looked down at the Codex, its pages fluttering as if moved by an invisible breeze. Symbols, once unreadable, began to shift and realign themselves into a map that revealed a hidden location deep within an uncharted part of the world. A cold shiver ran down her spine. There's someone waiting. Something even more dangerous than Victoria. This isn't over, Elias. We're being called somewhere ancient, forgotten. Elias studied the map, his jaw tightening as realization dawned on him. The Forgotten Isles. I've only heard legends. If the Codex is pointing us there, we're in for something far worse than we've ever faced. Suddenly, the air around them shifted, a low hum vibrating through the ground. The Codex's glow intensified, casting eerie shadows around them. Before they could react, a voice, ancient and ethereal, echoed from within the Codex itself. "You've only scratched the surface, Amelia Blackwood. The true keeper's trial is just beginning." Amelia's heart pounded, and she instinctively tightened her grip on Elias's hand. "What does that mean?" she whispered, though deep down, she feared she already knew. In that moment, the sky above them darkened unnaturally, and a crack of lightning split the air, followed by a deafening roar. From the distant horizon, a towering, shadowy figure began to rise, its form monstrous and ancient. Its very presence felt like the embodiment of fear itself. The voice from the Codex rang out again, this time more urgent, more commanding. "Prepare yourself, Keeper. For what awaits you is not just the fate of the Codex, but the fate of the world." Amelia's breath caught in her throat as the figure began to move, its massive form blotting out the sky. She exchanged a glance with Elias, their bond unspoken but clear. They had fought together through impossible odds, but this was something beyond either of them. Yet, Deep within, a spark of determination flared in Amelia's chest. She wasn't just any keeper, she was the last, and she wouldn't back down now. "Are you ready?" Elias asked, his voice calm but brimming with intensity. Amelia nodded, eyes locked on the looming darkness. "We don't have a choice." And with that, they turned toward the unknown, stepping forward into the rising storm, into the heart of the coming darkness. The codex pulsed one final time, as if alive with anticipation. Their journey was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. To be continued.